Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. I'm Donovan.
And I'm Jordan.
Join us as we go into the pages.
Podcast! Welcome back!
That says it all.
Our adventure with John continues with a bath.
With a bath, yep.
I thought that was funny. So the next morning after they get back to the preserve, since John's nanites are so low,
They don't keep them clean.
They don't keep them clean. That'd be so nice.
Yeah,
Never
holy cow.
allowed to bath or bathe or wear deodorant or anything like that.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that, but I guess, yeah, it totally makes sense.
That would be amazing, I would say.
I wonder if you even sweat or if they, like, regulate your body temperature, too. Like,
I mean, we kind of talked about that how it does regulate your temperature.
that's true, because he was able to turn up his temperature at nighttime. So I wonder if he probably doesn't even sweat. There's
more than sweat that gets you dirty. So I wonder if they really do just keep you clean. They just find dirt on your skin, just get out of here.
It's like flicking off.
Yeah. I wonder how many nanites, when he's at 100%, how many nanites does he have in his body? Like a few hundred, a couple 100,000?
It seems like it's a ton.
I think it would be a few 100,000.
I bet it's even more than that. I bet it's millions.
You think of millions? Oh, you're crazy.
I think it's going to be just like blood cells. Like, there's just going to be a ton of them.
I wonder if he's able to give some money away. And in this chapter, at the beginning, we get to see kind of what we were talking about earlier, like how would someone live if they had their nanites taken away, and like they can't use them. And John kind of shows us. He doesn't like it, to say the least.
No, he doesn't. He's just like, random parts of his body started itching without warning. His teeth felt slimy and gross. His nose was running from allergies.
That poor boy has to deal with allergies.
I know.
That'd be another thing that would be super nice. Like for you and me, since we're allergic to cats, we could have any cat we wanted. Just get some nanites.
Just get some nanites.
We just got to spend $3 million on nanites. Then we can get a $10 cat.
Worth it.
Right?
And their journey begins.
Yes.
They're heading on. And then a big part of this chapter is kind of just like a lot of, I guess, relationship development and maybe a little more background to Stefan and her abilities.
So we're going to see a lot of in these few chapters.
Yeah, actually, most of these chapters are
There's a little bit of excitement.
There definitely is some excitement, but a lot of it, we just learn more about the past of John. We get a little more understanding of him, I guess you could say. But back to Stefan. Turns out that you can't just become a scop. Like, you can't just decide, I want to become a scop, and then just do it. Like, it's something that you're born with, apparently. Or maybe at least Stefan was. Like, she has, like, these scars and these birthmarks on her back. There are 3 deep blue spots. So, apparently that means she's marked or cursed, however you think about it, by Woden.
Well, considering who Woden is and what the kind of crazy god he is, I would imagine that's a curse. That's what I would say anyway, because no thanks, I don't want him as my god.
And apparently, so the way she can, like, not really see whites, but she can just kind of, like, see something out of the corner of her eye, like a shadow moving. And apparently, if she, like, looks directly at it, since they don't like to be noticed, they'll be, like, mucho bad.
Yeah, but they also, like, it could be bad for her or the white. Like, one of them was going to die.
Yeah.
I want to know what they look like now. They're, like, super creepy. Like friggin' Medusa or something, and you look at him and
right.
it's stone. And Stefan's still on her, yes, honored elf.
Yeah.
Even though John so badly wants a normal relationship with her, which I think their relationship is kind of weird. I can't tell if, like, he has more romantic feelings for her
than she actually, like, feels for him.
Yeah,
I can totally see that.
Because it doesn't feel like kind of like a lovey story between them at all to me.
Yeah, it seems like they're just kind of more becoming friends.
Yeah, I would buy that.
But I'm sure John, he seems to be acting like he wants something more. I don't know if it's like he yearns for some sort of relationship. Like, he was really devastated when Cephwin was like treating him with like respect or whatever. Oh, not even respect, just like awe and not wanting to get like offend him. Which that would be kind of annoying if someone that you wanted to be your friend that treated you like that.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't like it. Yeah, so the only way that she really sees the whites is, out of the corner, like you said, but she just sees, like, their shadow. Which, she must just be used to it. Because I'm sure maybe you're like me, like, you see something moving in the corner, you're like, what is it? Like,
that's true.
You feel like, especially if it's like a shadow, and you're, like, in the middle of the woods or something, and you have all these, like, horror thoughts, like, oh, there's a ghost, it's going to kill me.
Word of the rise, don't read scary books when you're camping and then you have to pee. It's the worst.
I admit that makes me want to do it.
It happened to me. It wasn't even that scary of a book. Like, not scary at all. It was Harry Dresden and the Dresden Files. And I was reading about, it was like the Red Court vampires. And I was like, chapters about them. I was all worked up and I had to go to the bathroom. And I was like walking through the campsite. It was like pitch black like it is in the forest. And it was just kind of like... and it wasn't even a scary book, so I can't even imagine.
It's a good thing we don't have to be like Harry. How many times has he had to go into the dark and fight off some crazy monster?
Yeah. Oh, and then also Thok reappears, but it's funny how she does it. I don't know. There's still like this weird superstition about like hearth. What'd they call her? Hearth something.
I don't know. It's in there somewhere.
Hearthkeeper.
Hearthkeeper.
They have like this weird superstition around her because even though she like very obviously they like saw her coming or hiding up on the road, they like ignored her and pretended not to see her. She was hiding up the road and then like they very obviously saw her like she was not. I pictured like grandma, like a grandma just being like,
right,
and like not even being sneaky, but she kind of thinks she is. But Elsan and Cephwin like intentionally ignore her. And then pretend to be surprised when she's like, hello. And they're like, oh my gosh.
I want to know more why they're so like suspicious. Not suspicious, but wary of her. I don't know how to explain it, but why do they give her this like power of being... You know what I'm saying?
I don't know about power. They just like indulge her and like they just...
Yeah, I guess that's a better way to put it.
It's almost like they're treating her like a kid. Like, you know, my 3-year-old
probably trade her.
will run up to me and be like, boo, did I scare you? And I'll be like, yes, I'm so terrified. And it has like those vibes to me. Like they're just kind of like, yeah.
She's an old lady, so she's gone crazy. So like, what does she want her to easier?
But it turns out that Thok uses that to her advantage and she's used it to be able to travel and do all these things because it's safer to travel in a group, she even admits, and so she uses it. Because apparently everyone is like that. And she even says, like, she doesn't have to be afraid. She can have fun, travel the world, get into trouble, and then just kind of do what she wants.
I mean, they have, like, just a whole nother level of respect for the elderly. Like, let them do whatever they want. Who cares? They're going to die anyway. Kind of how she puts it. I think it's also funny that none of them give her a horse. Like, she's like this 80-year-old lady or something. I think they said her age when I'm old. She's super old. None of them offered her a horse, and she just walked next to him.
Yeah. And then, of course, what's an adventure without some bandits on the road?
Yes.
I swear, like, every book I've ever written...
You're secretly an author. We never knew it.
Maybe not every book, but I would say the vast majority of books have bandits of some sort. Like, and it's always like a sign of how awful the times are is how many bandits there are.
Yeah.
And everyone's always like, the roads, they were never this awful, now there's bandits. And so, of course, the same thing's happening here. So It kind of seems like it's one of those things of an adventure, travel the road fantasy that there's got to be bandits. Or the road has to be dangerous. It can't just be like driving down I-15. There's got to be dinosaurs on I-15.
Yes. And Thok tries to, I don't know, I would say warn them.
I don't know. She said she warns them, but it's like...
She just kind of talks about them.
Yeah, it's a kind of a stupid warning. It's like me being like, oh, if you walk over there, there's snakes. It's like, oh, yeah, snakes live in the desert. And then they get bit by a snake. And I'm like, I warned you. And like, you didn't tell me the snake was behind that specific rock.
Yeah, exactly.
You just said there were snakes in the desert. So that's essentially what it was. Because the bandits come out and Thok was like, I warned you twice. Like, yeah. But they're very polite.
Yes, even though these bandits are literally taking everything from him. They let him keep one horse, and they only even are letting him keep some things is because Sephuan says she's a scop.
Yeah, that's right. It's
And
like,
they're like, oh, okay, well, you don't have to pay our toll, but everyone else does.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how they introduce the toll too. They just walk up, and John even mentions like they're like very well kept. They're like groomed.
Yeah, they're not the normal bandits.
And they're just like, what is going on? Like the Vikings are clean, the bandits are clean. Like there's no one dirty in this world. It's kind of funny, but I thought it was interesting because I kind of chuckled because the main bandit guy like tapped a tree and he was like, "This is a very special tree. It's probably hundreds of years old, and it goes back to the world tree." And then you're kind of like, "What is he even trying to say? Like, is this like an obvious scam?" But then Sephuan kind of plays along, and she's like, "Oh yes, one would imagine that we'd have to pay a toll to behold it." And he was like, "So you understand? So we'll take your horses, please." And I'm like, "Geez, what a toll!"
Honestly, like, not even like just a few gold pieces or something. Like, we'll take your whole horse and like all your crap, your saddles and everything. Like, jeez.
I was just imagine like nowadays if someone tried to take my car, I'm like, that's a big deal. It's like they're expensive.
Yes.
And horses probably even more so in that time because you got to feed them. I guess I got to give gas to cars, but still, horses just seem more expensive.
I have a friend who his dad always would say, well, four-wheelers are cheaper than horses because you only have to pay for the four-wheeler when you use it, but whether you ride the horse or not, you still got to feed it.
That's true. But yeah, back then, like horses were everything.
They probably just let it roam around and eat grass. But yeah, they kind of were
like
everything.
You had to use them for work in the fields and the farms. They like were essential for if you wanted to travel fast. Like it just seems horses were so much more vital in times such as this. So to take someone's horses on the middle of the road seems pretty steep a price.
Yeah, can you imagine if you like kind of you know how they do the thing with money, like 100 years ago $1,000 is worth $1 million or whatever. You kind of did the same thing with like nowadays, like you compared horses to our cars. Can you imagine if you were like on an 800-mile journey and around 200 miles someone stole your car and you just had to walk? That's a huge amount of walking. Like this,
that would kill me.
Right, exactly. So that's kind of how I think about it. It's like, yeah, you take away the horse and it's pretty much just like you stranded them in the middle of nowhere. They might just die.
Thok does display some wisdom, I guess, in this part because she keeps preventing John from talking because I think John wants to try to use his magic, quote unquote, to scare him off, but Thok stops him, and Sephuan, everyone handles it pretty calmly. Like they give two of the horses actually. No, three.
I think they had 3 total horses. They gave 2 of them. Oh wait, no. Did they have 3 in the pack?
4. Yeah, I think they had 3 horses and a pack horse, and they decided to keep the pack horse as the horse that they could keep for Sephuan, and they put all their stuff on it. And then they start talking to them. They're like asking them questions, and then when it comes to John, Thok steps in and is just like, "Oh, this is my nephew, and he's not right in the head, so good luck even talking to him." And then there's like, okay, like, yeah, you guys can go. And then John's like surprised. He's like, really? And he even says that as they're walking away. He's like, wow, I can't believe they actually just let us leave. and then Thok is like,
yeah, she's mainly excited. I was so confused with this because like, what is the big deal? All 3 of you talk to the bandits, so why can't John? But
probably because I think they all think he's an Aelv, and because his accent is like an obvious dead giveaway. They probably didn't want to. I didn't
think about it at all. Oh yeah, I like what he says too. He's like, that's the first experience that made perfect sense to me. Yeah, and that's what got him in trouble.
Yeah, and then Thok sighs, and then something slams into him, and then everything goes dark. At first, I thought they like nailed him with. I thought
they just had like, that would have made sense. But I was imagining someone with like the butt of their sword just knocking him back of his head.
That can make sense too, especially because he doesn't have its head augment. So I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it turns out, apparently, in this future, which makes sense, because the nanites are such a big deal, augments are such a big deal that they've obviously come up with ways to deal with that. Whether it's like guns, like Ulric has that can punch through augments, or in this case,
much less lethal.
It's like
solution.
What do they call it? A blackout grenade.
Yeah, blackout grenade.
So blackout grenades, apparently they use a jolt of energy to make all the nanites in your body kind of like go, and then it's like
zap you by your own
It's like
nanite.
enough of electricity that just knocks you out.
And unfortunately for John, he had just enough nanites to get knocked out.
Yeah, seriously. He only has like, 5%? Yeah. Maybe they've duplicated. Maybe he has like 10 or 15% left, but still not a lot.
Yeah.
but enough to knock him out, and just few enough, or I guess few. What am I trying to say?
What are you trying
Yeah,
to say?
just enough to get knocked out, but not enough to recover easily.
Yeah.
Like apparently he was knocked out for a while, and the bandits mentioned later they're like, we weren't expecting you to be knocked out for that long.
You know, this is making me think of is what happens to the nanites in Elstan. Are they still in him? And if
they died, remember?
They do die? Okay.
So not because of the grenade, but when they were healing him, it said that they like transformed and died and turned into
like his
like
cells
tissue
or whatever,
and stuff.
Okay. I was just gonna ask, like, well, how come he didn't get knocked out? What's the range of these grenades?
Yeah,
But if that's what happens,
I don't
then
think they're in him anymore.
So he's safe, but
Yeah. And the reason he knows, he like, it's not like he just like knew. It's like, oh, that was a blackout grenade. Like, his nanites are specifically going through a reboot process, and that's how he knows it was a blackout grenade.
Right.
And then he realizes that he's imprisoned, and he sees Elstan sitting with the bandits, and he seems kind of rigid and straight. And so John decides to play the hero and try to rescue them.
Yes. This is where we've been moving pretty quick here, and we're in chapter 26 already. We started on chapter 24. Now in 26.
Oh yeah, these first few chapters are kind of short.
Yeah.
It's kind of just
So it's
boom, 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 and then it gets us to the meat of what these chapters are, which is a lot of character development, a lot of background. We're about to meet a key character.
Yes.
So.
And the bandits locked him in somewhere in some little like cabin type thing.
Yeah, he was in like a tool shed, he thought, or something similar.
But he's really easily breaks out of it.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they actually had him like locked up. They just put him in there to recover or whatever. But he still kind of thinks that Cephalin and Elstan and I guess Thok are all kind of in trouble. Like they're with these bandits. He tries to rescue them, but quickly.
Oh, before that, there is something I wanted to mention.
Yeah.
So apparently, I don't know what this is, but I don't know if it's just John freaking out. At this point, it kind of seems like that's the case. Later on, we learn a little bit more. But if he turns off his eyesight augments, everything becomes dark, of course. But then he it's like that, he can like see things moving, and he like shadows, but then he turns his night vision on, and they go away. And so it seems crazy because he says, whatever was moving out there turned invisible when I used night vision. He's like, that is cheating. So it kind of seems like he's just seeing stuff, and then because you know how like when you're sleeping in like a coat or like a fan or something will just look
random
so
in your bedroom.
creepy, and
yeah.
then you turn it on and you're like, oh, it's just a jacket or a shirt. So it seems like that's what's happening, but I think it was important. A little bit of foreshadowing right there.
I think it's the whites.
I don't know. I will argue. Right now, it does definitely seem like that's the lights.
Yeah. And I think before he confronts the bandits again, it's like this is where he realizes that, the reason they attacked me is and why Thok wanted me to be quiet is because these guys were watching for accents.
Yeah. Like they were looking for him, so that kind of makes us wonder: are this Ulric's men?
Yeah, and when I first read this, I thought these bandits were maybe hired by Ulric and were like watch out for this man, and maybe they give him a description of Ryan, and like so they have that grenade to take Ryan out and so they could bring him to Ulric or something.
Yeah, so it seems like. But then he hatches a plan that he's going to grab the leader and negotiate the release of his friends. And so but
he's still kind of thinking like he wanted to go all in there in fisticuffs or whatever, but since his nanites were still pretty low, he's like, I can't take all these guys on.
They don't want to risk injuries.
Yeah. But then he does what he says.
But then he charges out. But then he notices that Elstan's eating a bowl of soup. Cephalin is chatting amiably with one of the women, and then most importantly, the guy he was running towards turned around, and it's Ryan.
Yes. I'm glad we didn't end on that chapter because I would have been like, oh, man, Ryan. Yes, so we are finally going to get to meet Ryan.
Yes.
And things didn't go the way I thought they would.
No, definitely not. Before we get to the next chapter, though, so that's the end of chapter 24. And right before chapter 25, there's another excerpt which I thought was interesting. And the main thing I thought was interesting about it is apparently they have like games you can do that are like real life Risk.
Yeah.
And it seemed really interesting, but at the same time, like super messed up.
So messed up. Is it this one or is it the next one?
Oh, it might be the next one.
I think it's the next one.
Oh, yeah. This one's talking like, oh, yeah. We'll get to that. But yeah, so this one was like, if you're worried about ethics, like, don't worry, it's your dimension. You can do the right thing and really beat people up. So it really seems like this is an ethically gray area at best.
Seriously.
And they're trying to make it seem like it's this wonderful thing. But it obviously opens up possibilities for unaccountability and just unchecked cruelty and murder and genocide.
There's people who have those things like, well, I shouldn't try to conquer these people. That's really unfair and wrong. But there are people who they don't care.
Yeah, like Ulric, who he doesn't give a crap. I bet he's doing all sorts of bad stuff.
No kidding. I thought this chapter was kind of interesting. Not the excerpt. I just thought I think it was this one where it talks about the lady who like literally built a city that was for free, that anyone could come and live there for free.
Yeah,
we need one of those.
Seriously.
I thought that was kind of interesting. I wonder. I was just thinking. I wonder if it was like she built like a modern city, or if she just built like a giant stone city, like you would kind of think you'd see in modern or medieval times.
Maybe I was kind of picturing Stargate.
There you go. Why not?
Like this world of like non-technology in a random city that has like spaceships. I don't know if that's what Stargate has.
That'd be really cool. I like that. Yeah, so, chapter 27.
I don't know if it's talked about this before, but we learn in this chapter, maybe again for people who remember, but for me, it's even new. But I didn't realize that Ryan and John has been friends since childhood.
I don't remember if it said that clear back his childhood, but it talked about like him, Ryan, and Jen all hanging out for a few years and everything like that.
Yeah, I think Jen came a little later,
Yeah.
but Ryan's been there since childhood. And then he realizes that, because he first thought that Ryan hated him because Quinn was like, I'm surprised Ryan didn't kill you.
Yeah.
But then it turns out that Ryan doesn't hate John in the way that you would kill someone because you hate them.
Yeah.
He's more disappointed, maybe like a little like that like best friend thing, that kind of like a little hurt or betrayed.
Yeah.
But not like he's going to murder you. But we do get a little bit of a rant from Ryan. Not yet, though. But Ryan kind of plays along because they also think that he's an elf, the bandit group. And he's even dressed like Robin Hood.
Yes. And I like what they talk about later, like, oh, maybe all the Robin Hood stories are about me.
I know, and he's like, that doesn't make sense because it's not in a different dimension. He's like, well, maybe someone who was in a different dimension inspired by my story came, and then that's how Robin Hood actually became. Like, you never know. And John's like, okay. And then Ryan's like, I didn't expect to find you here. And then we get a little insight of why Ryan's there. Apparently, and I might be getting a little ahead of myself. You have to forgive me because I don't remember where in these next three chapters this happens.
Right.
So I'm just going to so I think in this next segment, we're just going to kind of talk about everything
that happens.
Because 27, 28, and 29 is pretty much a big conversation.
Yeah, there's not really any
Ryan.
breaks.
Yeah, between Ryan and John, and there's like little breaks here and there between chapters, but overall it's just one big conversation. So yeah. I think we'll just kind of jump around. We'll try to keep track of what chapter we're in, but generally just talk about what was going on.
That's death.
And so I think we should start with what we learned more about John's background. Let's talk about why Ryan is in this dimension and how big of mess up John did by doing here. So Ryan's theory, so John's pretty convinced that the whites are real, that magic in this dimension is real, but Ryan calls it quantum probability something, where in this specific dimension, probability is affected or manipulated, and things that are improbable happen more frequently. So, like lay out berries and then, it just so happens that a shoe is made or something like that.
And he stretches his little belief. I think this was quite a stretch.
I think it's quite a stretch as well, mainly because of what he describes how and why Ulric is using this world. So it turns out Ulric isn't here, according to Ryan, to rule a world like we kind of thought maybe he was. He's there because apparently, and Ryan didn't say this, but I'm pretty sure this is how it happens. Apparently, the whites are able to predict very accurately things that are going to happen in the real world. So like Ulric comes in with like lottery tickets, and
Oh yeah, yeah.
and they can tell him exactly what to pick and how to do it, and then he wins tons of money. And the implications are like he doesn't have to do money laundering because he can just pay people in lottery tickets that are guaranteed to win, and like he can do all these crazy things with this probability to go back on Earth and just get a crazy advantage over other criminal activities. And so that's why he's there, and that's why Ryan's there, because he's there to stop Ulrich from being able to do that. And Ryan's the one who sabotaged the equipment, and kind of like we learn more about these interdimensional beacons, which I thought was interesting because Ryan's whole plan was come sabotage, scout a little bit, and then have like I kind of pictured like a SWAT team or like the special task force team coming in.
Yeah, definitely.
But it didn't work, and so he was kind of confused why, because he destroyed the only beacon. Apparently, if there's two beacons, only one beacon can present at a time.
Yeah, whatever they have back in their dimension can only pick up one beacon.
And apparently, so even though he destroyed Ulrich's beacon, he was really confused. He's like, they accidentally destroyed mine too, because when he activated it, the backup didn't show up, but John did.
Yeah, somehow John did.
And again, we learned that John just totally on accident picked a random dimension, just 100% by accident.
And out of all the many dimensions that Ulric has,
it said that thousands. Ryan said thousands.
Somehow he freaking had the luck of this dimension and picked the wrong one.
Seriously, if he had picked any other one, his plan would have worked, and he would have been scot-free. And
yeah,
it didn't work. And then we Ryan kind of postulates that Ulric must have a backup secondary beacon, but since the beacon that Ryan has is just a little handheld one.
Yeah, it's his personal, but it's not like. I guess I wonder why there's different sizes.
I don't know. Maybe
the bigger ones allow more people to come through, whereas like Ryan's only allowed him to come through.
I don't know, because he was planning a whole team to come through.
Because I think what Ryan destroyed was the portal.
I thought he destroyed the portal and the beacon, but since he had a backup beacon,
no, it definitely was both. I think it was at least the beacon, and then there was a portal that he also destroyed. So in this chapter, it's where we learn why John lost his memories. He brings it up to Ryan, and Ryan's just kind of like, you didn't take the pill? And I love his brother. What pill? Yeah, it's called the dimensional stabilizer. And apparently you're supposed to take this pill and it'll help your body or whatever your mind transition over. But apparently without this pill, you lose your memory.
Yeah, seriously.
Which is kind of scary. I'd be scared, but please don't go. No.
And we also figure out why John kind of ended up in a random field. It's because a week before John arrived, Ryan had disabled the beacon and the portal. But since there was still that other backup beacon, he was still able to make it, but wasn't able to be like precise with it. And so that's why he kind of just randomly showed up in a random village field. And then it also comes out that Ryan's like, so you're planning to take on Ulric, right? And John's like, yeah. And then Ryan's like, I knew there was good in you. He doesn't like say it, but he kind of has a look, and John's like, whatever.
And as they're kind of conversing, they talk about, John tells about his run-in with Quinn and how it sounds like this is where he kind of learns he got the backup, and we learn that the reason why Ryan's little beacon didn't work is because Ulric has a second one that's stronger than his, so the people his backup in their dimension can't pick up his. So I guess, and they apparently can't. They probably can't see Ulric from what their description. So they can't be like, what? Well, there's the beacon, but that's not Ryan's. They can't see a beacon at all. Whoever this backup is.
Yeah. So yeah, that's most of 27 right there. So he sees a chance to kind of make things the way they were with Steph went back to that way, and he decides to ruin things. At first I thought he was going to ruin Ryan's plan, but it turns out he's just going to ruin his image.
Yes. And
so he kind of pokes at Ryan. He kind of starts, because he knows that Ryan's kind of like an honest, upstanding guy. And so he's like, starts by saying, he's like, did you guys know that And he starts saying lies like, I taught Ryan how to be a warrior and I did all these things. And then Ryan's kind of like, no, he's like, he kind of messed up, doesn't do anything. Like, he didn't do anything. And then he like really pokes at him. And he's like,
He brings up Jen.
yeah, because he's like, what does it say? He like interrupts him in a way that's kind of. Oh, yeah, so Cephalon, so he's like talking about what kind of person he is, and Cephalon's like, what kind of person was he? And then Ryan says he, but then John cuts in and says he was good enough for Jen to choose. And then that kind of sets off Ryan, and he like just goes off on him. He's like, he's a chronic underachiever. He failed everything he's ever tried. He wasn't a great warrior. He's a scam artist. And then he talks about like the one time he thought he was doing something good, like when he was a UFC. I keep saying UFC, but probably like the Augmented War fighter. Turns out he was part of a cheating fraud thing, and so he just like totally rips into him and like
Yes.
he even says like his parents even moved away. His sister won't talk to him because he owes her all this money and he's exhausting to be around.
Yeah, he comes off. Ryan just totally tells him that John is just one of those deadbeats who he lies and cheats. Doesn't matter who, he'll take advantage of you, even if you're his own mother.
Exactly.
And he's one of those people who, like, whenever you see him, like, hey man, can I have some money? Do you have any money?
Yeah, he's like John. Every time I see him, he asks for money. But Ryan also gets some steam off his chest. But he's like, John essentially copied everything that Ryan did and tried to one up him. So like, turns out the reason John went to art school is because Ryan was thinking about it. So John hurried and registered before Ryan even went. And then Ryan graduated from the police academy, and so John decided to go do that. And then Ryan also mentioned that he liked Jen, and then John asks out Jen. And so I can see how that would be super frustrating.
Yeah, seriously. It's impressive that Ryan would even still be friends with him. I would have ditched a guy like that.
Seriously.
Screw you.
And hearing all that kind of went further than I think John wanted it to.
Like his plan went off without a hitch perfectly, but got hurt a little more than he was prepared for. And then he has to walk off. But this is where things get interesting. I can't remember. Does he talk to Cephalon first or the White?
He talks to the Whites first. So he goes out in the darkness. He turns off his seeing augments again, and he sees the shadows. And he kind of talks to him. He's like, "Can I join you guys?" And then they get closer.
Yeah, it's like.
But then they kind of like run away. But then the main White that is bonded to him starts talking, and it turns out that John's presence and Ryan's and Ulric's and everyone not from this dimension hurts the Whites and makes them die, essentially.
Yeah, which I don't know how that works, but okay. But yeah, and apparently the White that is attached to John is stronger than the rest of them.
So he can like withstand the pain a little bit.
It. I don't know if he's like... I don't know if it's like saying he can stand it and like it hurts him a little bit and he heals or whatever, or if like it's slowly hurting him and slowly wearing him down. And eventually, if John and everyone else doesn't leave, this White will die too. I don't know if that's what it's saying, but
because he called it poison, like it's an opposite to them and deadly. And I think John kind of reasoned it out. I don't know if this is right because John's doesn't know everything about the interdimensional travel, but the book did mention, and by book I mean the guide that John has, the Frugal Wizard's Guide, says that the reason they're able to travel to these dimensions but not bring anything back is because their dimension has more substance. And so I think John was saying to the Whites, like, oh, maybe that's why you guys are dying, because we have more substance, and so we're like, and I think the White even said, like, your world is bleeding into this one, and so it's like imposing our rules and our physics and our laws, like natural laws, onto this place.
Which I think it's a really cool way to look at things, like from like a writing perspective. That's a really cool.
It kind of made me think of Terry Goodkind.
Yeah. Reminded of you.
For those of you who read Terry Goodkind, it's been a long time since I've read it, but I remember in one of the books,
Sword of the Truth.
Yeah, Sword of the Truth series. There in one of the books, like one of the later books, I think after even they beat Jagang or whatever his name is, there's like these 3 chimes that come in and they like drain the magic of the world.
I don't remember anything about that. No.
I know what happens. Like these beings come and like their purpose was made to like drain magic from the world, and like I don't know. Anyways, It kind of made me think like that, like John's presence and Ryan's, anyone not in this dimension just kind of drains it of what it is.
Okay, yeah. And actually, I thought this was interesting. We've only talked about it, their presence here being damaging to the whites, but John asks like if Ulric sets up a permanent base here, his white then says death to whites, to weird, and to gods. It's like holy crap. It's gonna make this world a normal world like ours, not magical.
Which is opposite of what Ulric wants, because the reason he goes there is to use the whites to win stuff.
Yes. So that begs the question for me: what jerk came to our world 1,000 years ago and took away all our magic? Gosh, they suck.
And then Sephiroth comes up and they start talking.
And I think his plan still also kind of worked. He got Ryan to show everyone what he really was, so they won't worship him anymore. And Sephiroth,
she still thinks that he's an elf, though, because she just thinks now that he's the lowest of.
Yeah, he's not.
You're among the lowest of the elves.
Yes.
The elves.
So it still kind of works. She doesn't really refer to him as honored elf in this. After this,
yeah, I think things are pretty much back to normal.
Yeah.
And she still thinks that he's an elf, but doesn't quite defer to him as much. And she even has a little joke. She's like, the stories say to avoid elves, particularly the handsome ones. And he smiles, and she's all like, so you're probably safe. So calling him ugly.
One for another little joke.
But then he has a good witty remark that I thought was funny too. So he's like, I'll have you know that I'm considered incredibly handsome among my people. And Sephiroth says, is that so? And then John says, yes, I have it on good authority from my mother.
Oh, yes. From his mother. I like that part too.
Yeah.
It was quite funny.
So she's able to bring him back to the fire. And we get a little piece of artwork. I actually haven't seen this yet. I just listened to the audiobook this week and didn't quite look. And this artwork is bringing in what I was talking about earlier. So there's another little excerpt here. I was just like, oh my gosh, this sounds so terrible. But they host games in different dimensions, and that are pretty much like real life Risk games, like the strategy game Risk. So that you can have two or more, however people go, and the goal is to go to different places and raise up armies and see who can conquer the other people. So I'm like, oh my god, how many thousands of people are they just dying? So it's like a game to them.
Yeah.
Like war itself is like so bad. It's
Honestly.
awful. And then to just think that people are doing it for entertainment.
Yeah, not even like.
It's just crazy. Like, can you imagine if like we find out that World War II was actually orchestrated by people just so they could laugh and have fun? I'd be like, what the F?
Right. Definitely would have very negative feelings.
Yeah,
about those
seriously.
people, but like, get them out of here.
And they're making it seem like a good thing. Like, oh, it'll be so much fun. It'll be so good. Like, you can do different things. Like, you could do, like, you and a friend can just go in, like, with nothing and then see who can become powerful first and do however the heck you want. Like, I don't know. They're trying to sell, like, these great things. But to me, it's just like, totally oh, that's just bad.
Yeah, honestly. Makes me think of Hunger Games too, where they send all these kids
straight
to
up
kill each other for their entertainment.
And that leads us into the last chapter for this week, chapter 29. And we get kind of like a tentative makeup, I guess, between Ryan and John. Like there's so little tension between them, but they kind of call it. John acknowledges like, yeah, everything you said about me is true, and I know I suck. And Ryan's like, oh, I shouldn't have been so harsh. Like, I'm sorry I was that bad. And he was like, no, it's true. And then we also get a little bit of, and it kind of ends there. Like it's kind of like an awkward, like, okay, like we're both fine. Like,
yeah,
kind of stuff
I like
that happened.
What John is kind of thinking at this point is, Ryan. You know, he comes back and Ryan asks him, "So, should we focus on how we're going to take down Ulric?" And then John is thinking himself, complete and total avoidance of uncomfortable emotions. He was speaking my language.
Yeah.
That's just John's nature. He wants to run away from anything confrontational that doesn't really benefit him, type of thing. And so with Ryan avoiding it, he's just like, oh, good. I want to avoid it.
It's just what I wanted.
It's just what I wanted, yeah.
I like this chapter too because we finally learn why John rates everything.
Yes, which I think it's really cool.
It's kind of
I think it's cool to learn. It's kind of a weird thing he does, for sure.
It definitely turned into a weird thing, but started off as like kind of like that's kind of sad. But like turned into like now just like so basically what it is now is just a weird quirk he has, just something that he does because it's fun for him.
Yeah,
and it's entertaining. But it started off because he was just like depressed and everything he did he failed at, and he was like wondering why everyone else was so happy. And so he was like, maybe I should start thinking about what makes me happy. And so he got a notebook and started like tracking it and like reviewing and rating things. And then eventually it just turned into something that he liked doing. And Ryan thought he was doing it because he had really high standards and was like judging people when actually select himself. And he was like, no, Ryan, I did it because I hate myself and my life sucks. And Ryan's like, it's not that bad. And he's like, every bad thing that's happened to me. And he like says all these things that happen. Like apparently there's this big test, but his nanites had like an error. And so they didn't like wake him up and they like made him sleep too long. So he missed a test. And he's like, and then he actually brought up a good point. He was like, so even though it's like everything is luck, but when you do something bad, like you get worked up, you get psyched up, and then it makes you do worse in the next thing, and then you're like even more psyched up, and you're like trying so hard, and then you like, since you're so psyched up, you're like messed up. And that's how it's been like my whole life. And Ryan's like, oh dang, like it's like maybe I'm the way I am because everything worked out for me. Like I can't even imagine. And so like again, they're kind of a little more patched up. And
yeah, I think it's an interesting way. I wonder if Brandon did any sort of research into like the mind of humans.
I'm sure he did,
because that sounds super accurate. Because I feel like I've had that kind of experience with me where like I totally just like I try so hard to do something and then fail, and I try even harder next time and fail, and I'm just like I can do nothing.
I know. That happens to me too. Like in real life, I even thought about it in video games. Like if I'm like fighting like a bad boss, like when I was playing Elden Ring, I'm trying to defeat that stupid lady. I don't even remember what her name is anymore.
It's like Meliana or something.
Yeah. And like I would like try again and again and again. And just like each time I'd get like a little worse, and then I'd have to take a break. And the next day I would like I think it took me a few days to finally beat her, but like I had to take breaks. But that's kind of like a little snippet of like not a real life, because I don't have to get too personal. In this.
Yeah. We'll leave the personal stuff to John.
Yeah, and then they hatch a plan. So this chapter is good. They have that kind of reconciliation. Things are still like raw, I think, and not like fully patched up, but I think they're heading in the right direction for Ryan and John. And Ryan even encourages John. He's like, if we pull this off and you can become one of the people who brought down Ulric, which would be a huge deal, and probably help turn your life around. So there's hope.
Yeah.
And we find out what their plan is. It's basically, it boils down to John and the Merry Men, playing off the Robin Hood thing, are going to distract Ulric's men while Ryan goes in, disables Ulric's backup beacon, starts his beacon, and brings in the actual backup. And he said a really good reason why they need to do it this way, because he's like, can you imagine these people? Like, these are good people, but can you imagine them going up against our military? Like, there's just no chance.
Absolutely no chance.
Absolutely no chance. So they got to be quick.
I mean, like, you think, like, oh, maybe he'll get an arrow in, but no. If they brought, like, if you think of our SWAT, like, they are armored to the max, head to toe, and they've got shields, and then their own offensive weaponry and stuff.
Yeah, and even, like, further on that, like, if you imagine, like, the SWAT team going back, like our SWAT team going back to our medieval times,
they would definitely
like they would whoop butt, but there would still be a chance. You know, like if you got in under their armor, but here they have augments, so you get past their armor, their skin is armor.
Yeah. So
there's no chance. There's no chance. Not an army of them, not a group of them working together. Yeah, there's just no way. If there's one of them, you could probably swarm them, kind of like you could have like a shard bearer. But like an army of them, there's just no way.
Definitely not.
Just not going to happen.
I can imagine.
So the big.
That's what it sounds like. That's what Ulric wants to do, is bring some people here.
Yeah, he's bringing backup. I think it seems like he's primarily bringing the backup to deal with Ryan, but of course he's not going to care about collateral damage, because it's not the people that are making him win all these probability things on Earth. It's the whites. So yeah, he's definitely not going to care. And how they're going to do that is, so Ulric has like modern security systems around where he's set up, and one of those systems are if it senses someone with nanites or augments, it sets off an alarm. So John's going to intentionally set it off, draw the attention, and then Ryan has someone on the inside of Ulric's crew working for him. That's going to open up the back door.
I wonder who it is, because the only people we've met on Ulric's side is Ulric himself and then Quinn.
Yeah, so apparently he has other people. I don't know how many other people. But
I wonder if he's got to be in this dimension. He's not back home, because I think if he was, then Ryan wouldn't be able to communicate with him. Yeah. So he's somewhere on this planet, I guess, at their Ulric's other base, or how they're set up, whatever you want to call it. I wonder what all these merry men think of Ryan, because with John, he kind of displays all these things that you can't see. Like he changes his voice. You can't really see where that's coming from other than him. He changes his hands and all the stuff that he did in previous chapters to make people believe he was this elf. But with Ryan that we didn't mention is he's got a bunch of technology in this camp. Like he's got solar panels and there's
He's got a laptop.
He has his laptop and he's got like a shovel or something like that. But still, like, what do those people think of the solar panels and like the laptop?
That's right. There's like, wow, I was like elf technology. I don't even know.
Yeah, probably did something like that.
Another cool thing to mention. So, as a cop, Ryan has like some additional augments that aren't available to the public, maybe, but like
Probably not.
one of them was video recording, which I thought was interesting. So John can take like screenshots, but like Ryan can just like record stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, can you imagine memories like that?
Oh,
You just close your eyes and just perfectly see it, like
That would
watching
be-
a movie
That'd be
from
really
like
cool.
your perspective. So
Yeah, I would like that a lot.
yeah,
Especially when you're having those bad days and you're just like, I wish I could just go back to this time.
it's like remember Disneyland.
Yeah, there you go.
And yeah, that kind of takes us to the end. So we have a plan to take down Ulric. We have a little bit more insight to John, why John's the way he is, and his relationship with Ryan.
Yeah, we get to learn.
Things are kind of patched up.
In previous chapters, we didn't know what the relationship between Ryan and John was.
As
Like
just
he thought
guesses.
he was they were partners, and then Quinn mentions that, oh, I'm surprised he didn't kill you. So we kind of thought that, but Ryan is not the person we thought he was going to be, I think. So definitely, I liked how we got to shed some light on that area and have to like, who is this Ryan? What's the relationship really?
So just a good kind of setup chapters. Yeah, I'm sure the next few chapters are going to be pretty crazy as we get more into the main action event of the. I'm curious to see if John decides to stay, or if they'll even let him stay, or maybe it's going to the whole dimension is going to become evidence or something. I don't even know. But
Yeah.
did you have a favorite part?
Kind of, I guess. It was a little different. My favorite part was just getting more of the backstory. I really enjoyed learning about Ryan and John's relationship. It was interesting to learn that they were like childhood best friends. Even though if I had a childhood best friend like John, I would not have a friend like him anymore. But it was interesting to kind of learn how John was kind of a mooch off of Ryan. He really didn't like go after the things that he wanted. He went after the things that Ryan wanted. Anyway, I really just liked learning more about the history and getting to meet Ryan and stuff like that.
I think it's very similar for me. I mean, this.
How dare you copy me?
I'll do what I want. Yeah, it's just like a lot of setup, a lot of things going on. And I think for a lot of people, these kind of chapters are boring and they're like, get on with it.
Yeah.
Was there some of that for sure, but I think generally, I think Brandon Sanderson does it right. I think some authors really like Robert Jordan and all his books, and J.R.R. Tolkien, I think does this a lot. Like, it just takes like pages and pages and pages to describe stuff that you could have done more succinctly. But I think Brandon does a great job. He gives us the background we need, enough to give us like a good insight into who these people are, where they're coming from, why they are who they are now, but also leaving enough room for us to kind of fill in the gaps. And
Yeah, it wasn't an overwhelming amount of information or anything. So, definitely agree. He also has a little more complicated stuff, I think, when you get into like the Wave Kings and the Stormlight Archive. Gets a little longer, but
that's true.
I don't know, not the same way. I don't know. I feel like there was a lot of setup and there probably was. I'm sure
Well, if you think about Robert Jordan, like there's a lot of if you think about Robert Jordan, there's a lot of scenes where it's just like takes like a page and a half to describe like what a road looked like, or
yeah, that's different. That's not what Brandon does, I don't think.
not as much. I think he does do it, but in like different ways. Like he does it. I don't know how to describe it. I think he just does it well.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right, well, we got through, as we've said several times now, it's kind of like set up chapters. We've met Ryan. Ryan and John have kind of teamed up. Hopefully John isn't going to go back to his old ways and just try to dip out when things get a little hard. So you all have to join us next week for what I'm sure will be a lot more action.
Yes.
All right, y'all. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Next episode. It's over.